Kailieha, and I'm the great niece of my uncle Herbert Kailieha Pililaau. Now, he was the son of William Kaluhi and Abigail Kaililani, and they had 14 children. Uncle Herbert was one of the younger children, born October 10th, 1928. Now, I was told that my great-grandmother birthed all 14 children by herself at home. My grandmother, Abigail Kabahahe'e, whom my daughter is named after, was Uncle Herbert's older sister. Uncle Herbert and his siblings were raised in Hawaiian.
I'll tell you about my uncle. My younger uncle, I remember him as a quiet uncle. Where the family lived is a place that sat behind Waianae Main Road there. Wooden house with kerosene stove and outside shower. And it was pretty much a little country area. It was kind of a big lot with mango trees on them. My uncle lived there. He still lived at home in Waianae, on the island of Oahu, in the state of Hawaii.
Aloha mai ohana. I call him Uncle Kaili and not Uncle Herbert. I would fool around with his stuff, especially a blue chest he had in his room, and I still remember his room quite vividly. But that blue chest held all of his treasures. So I used to go in his chest and hui around. But he had a lot of records in there. And surprisingly enough, they weren't Hawaiian music. It was opera and classical.
We were talking to his sister, my Auntie Mercy, a little older than him, talk about him being a very studious person, was very good at school, as a result wanted to become a bookkeeper.
He was a very neat person. Every morning he'd iron a fresh shirt that was starched to go to work at the Bank of Hawaii as a teller. And there were a lot of stories about him helping the older women, especially the Japanese ladies. When he saw them having trouble crossing the highway, he would escort them, carry their grocery bags. He was a very handsome person, but very, I would say, kind of delicate. He was very sensitive. Well, anyway, that's my impression of Uncle Kaili.
After World War II, Korea was divided into North Communist Korea and South Korea. In 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea, and the United States came to the rescue of the South Koreans. My uncle, at a young age of 22, was drafted into the Army.
He went for basic training and so forth. And as a private, meaning he was just probably in there a year or so before he went into action, combat action in Korea and Heartbreak Ridge. He didn't necessarily want to go, but he went because it was his duty. He's an honorable guy.
While in Korea, Uncle Herbert served under his platoon leader named Walter Lewis.
I was in World War II, became an officer when the Korean War came along. By this time I was married with 2 kids. I ended up in Busan, which is southern part of town, seaport in South Korea. And we were on what they called the punch bowl. They introduced me to my platoon. The Hawaiian kids of my platoon would be singing at night. So I would join them and sing the bass parts. Whenever I needed new recruits, I asked for Hawaiian kids, because the Hawaiians were good soldiers.
While serving in Korea, Uncle corresponded with his family back in Hawaii. His great-great-nieces and nephews would share some of those letters. He also went by Kaili.
This is a letter I sent to him, the envelope for the letter I sent to him in October 1st, 1951. Addressed to Private Herbert Kailieha Pililaau.
When my papa was 6 years old, he wrote a letter to his uncle. It says, "Hello, Uncle Kaili. How are you?" "I'm fine, Chucky." My uncle never received the letter from my papa because he died before.
It was returned back, and it came back in October 27th, end of the month. Uncle never received it. He had passed away and got killed in action before this letter actually got to him.
I'd like to read a letter from Uncle Herbert Kailieha Pililaau to my grandmother. And he wrote to his sister saying, I am in Korea with few of the boys from the island. Here we don't have much to see except mountains with few villages here and there along the mountains. I haven't seen any place else as bad as this place. That's all you can see for miles around is mountains. We have a nickname for our enemy. We call our enemies goose. Whenever we are going out on patrol, we would say, look out for the wild goose. They are hidden in the bushes. It's safe where we are now because the French are in front of us. I think I'm beginning to like this place, Korea, only for one thing. In every village there we have been through, there is no family in sight. The boys burn down the houses so that when they leave the place, the enemy cannot make use of the house or crops. We have captured few of our enemies. Most of the enemies are young boys, aged 14 to 18. The reason they join young is because they were forced to join the Communist Army.
Later that night at 11:45 p.m., we had gone down into the valley for our special mission. We couldn't stay in the valley because it was too dangerous. I was so tired from walking 16 miles. Walking is what got us so tired. I hope none of my brothers would think that the infantry is a good unit. That's all we've ever been doing ever since we got here is walking. By the time we get back home, I'll be a good mountain climber.
Well, sis, I think I better stop writing because it's raining hard. I have half my body in the shelter, so I can write this letter without getting wet. Right now, the army doesn't pay us because we are on the front line. I'm sure I'll get plenty of money because I have my private class in the middle of July. We are not allowed to use American money here, but we have it changed into military dollars. Give my best to my family.
Walter Lewis was one of the last people to see my uncle alive on that fateful night, September 17th, 1951.
Then they pulled us off of there and up on a ridge. We could see the enemy on a ridge across. My platoon was stretched out along the ridge where it ended in a drop-off. I sent one of my squads out to the end of the ridge to protect that. That evening, we were attacked by hundreds of North Koreans. I stayed with the rest of my group. We pulled back slightly and fought off the enemy. But my squad, several people were killed, including your relative, Herbert Kailieha. He fought after losing or spending all of his ammunition. He fought hand to hand until he was killed. The next morning we went out and there was a lot of dead enemy laying around by Herbert. He was a quiet person. There were some wiseacres in the platoon, and some comedians, but he was a quiet man, and he was a good soldier. It wasn't fun. War is not fun.
Private First Class Pililaau, a member of Company C, distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and outstanding courage above and beyond the call of duty in action against the enemy. The enemy sent wave after wave of fanatical troops against his platoon, which held a key terrain feature on Heartbreak Ridge. Valiantly defending its position, The unit repulsed each attack until ammunition became practically exhausted, and it was ordered to withdraw to a new position. Voluntarily remaining behind to cover the withdrawal, Private First Class Pililaau fired his automatic weapon into the ranks of the assailants, threw all his grenades, and with ammunition exhausted, closed with the foe in hand-to-hand combat, courageously fighting with his trench knife and bare fists until finally overcome and mortally wounded. When the position was subsequently retaken, more than 40 enemy dead were counted in the area he had so valiantly defended. His heroic devotion to duty, indomitable fighting spirit, and gallant self-sacrifice reflect the highest credit upon himself, the infantry, and the United States Army.
That when the time was needed, he gave all he had to those he loved at the time and defended at the expense of his life. The scriptures say that there's no greater love has a man than one that gives his life for his fellow man. So Uncle Herbert did a great job, but when the time came to defend his position and defend people he was trying to save and retreat, he gave his all to do that.
Ironically, in February of 1952, Uncle was buried in the National Cemetery in Hawaii. If you remember, he also died at Heartbreak Ridge, right next to Punch Bowl, and was buried at the National Cemetery, which is also known as Punch Bowl.
I've been away a long time, but when that breeze came calling me, come back to your home by the sea.
Uncle Herbert was the first Hawaiian to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor. His parents, William and Abigail, were flown to Washington, D.C. to accept the award on behalf of their son who passed away.
Hawaiian couple plane capital trip to accept son's medal. An aging Hawaiian couple will go to Washington next week to receive the Medal of Honor for a son who left home a retiring youth and died a hero. We're proud, very proud, says Miss William K. Pililaau, with just the trace of a tear from Herbert. There's wonder mixed with that pride, wonder that a boy who stuck to his boots and ukulele became a two-fisted, knife-wielding man who tore barehanded into a horde of killers. I remember, though, says his mother, used to come back all scratched up after fishing, fighting the waves to get the shellfish. He was determined. He'd say, Mama, I was determined to get those ofi, no matter what I had to do. Herbert never spoke of Korea's grimness when he wrote twice a week.
After Uncle received the Medal of Honor, many places in Hawaii and Korea were named after him, including a very, very large ship.
A few years back, the Navy and the military service recognized Uncle Herbert for his service and named the ship after him. This is the Strategic Sea Lift. Basically, it's a ship commissioned by the Navy and operated by a Navy captain and civilian crew. And what they were people. They were a ship that would take equipment, they say, as much as 3 football fields of planes, helicopters, tanks, jeeps, and everything needed. Because I understand that if a man is transferred to Iraq or Iran and he's a tank commander, he takes his tank with him. The other commander comes home with his tank. And so this ship was built with that and honored his name. There's a little coin here that shows the ship. It's a U.S. Navy Bob Hope class, a roll-off ship that had a back end would go down in the back, and you could open the back up and things would come up out of the water, or the side, or the cranes would pick it up, put it on the deck, or on the side, a big bridge would come out on the side, and you can drive up the side as well onto the ship. At the time it was in Hawaii, the family got a chance to go on board and take a look at it. And a couple of my uncles and aunts were still alive then, so we went on board, and the captain showed us the mess hall and the areas where the crew lived, as well as the deck of all the equipment they had on board. And at the time he said that they made 7 trips to Saudi Arabia and that area, the Indian Ocean there, and taking equipment back and forth.
Although Uncle was unable to be married or have children, he has a large posterity of nieces and nephews that love him very much, and they would like to share with you their thoughts about him.
My Uncle Kaili was loyal and courageous.
I'm humbled to call Herbert Pililaau Uncle. He was courageous, brave, and strong when it mattered most.
I'm grateful for our uncle's example of sacrifice and his willingness to put the needs of others before his own need. That's a good example to me.
I want to love my friends like my uncle loved his friends.
I'm grateful for the example of courage he set.
He was strong.
Inspiring. I want to be courageous like my uncle was.
Learn to be selfless from Uncle's example.
My uncle's story teaches us to do hard things.
I'm happy that Uncle was fearless and fighted for his friends.
My middle name is Keikoa. It means warrior, strength, and courageous. I am trying to be courageous like my uncle.
When I am reminded of the amazing and powerful things my uncle did, I want to be like him, and I want to make our family name proud, just like he did.
One word or a few words that I know that our family do hold dear is aloha, ikikahi, ikikahi. Love one another. Love your family. Love is our family. Love is what we hold dear in our family, which I love to always have in all my memories of us. And I knew he had the same beliefs. That's why he did what he did, with love.
He was a great warrior and a great example to me.
I'll be in heaven, glad that he served his country and died for his country like Jesus, how he died for everyone.
He was a good man that saved people.
Ai hea ka oko ha'awina hu iki kula sabati o ke ia la.
Ai no ia ma ke kauha hou I hoi ki ia ma ke puke o mataio mokuna I lima.
I can't wait to see you in heaven one day. I love you, Uncle Kaili.
Sweet Maolino, a me ke ona ona. Sweet ona he I ka poni. I ke ono mai a ka make make.